it's your boy Agent Albatross here again with the Cypher Unlimited crew. We have our usual suspects of Spigs18 or Anthony, AD or Alpha Dean, or just simply Dean. And Dean, what are we doing here today?
Well, we were wandering around trying to figure out what we were going to talk about this week, and we reached out to the community, Cypher Unlimited, which is like the most awesome community online as there as is. And we got a ton of great suggestions. You know what? So instead of trying to make anybody feel better or anything, we just kind of randomly chose one. And Josh, otherwise known as Count Zero on our channel, came up with a great one. So we're going to go over the critical points of adventure design. Basically, a quick adventure for if you have little to no prep time. And so we're just going to go over the concept of quick design, a quick and dirty adventure. That's what we're going to attempt to do. And Anthony's going to go over the criteria for the discussion.
Yes. I believe the title that he suggested was how to run a quick pickup Cypher game with little to no prep time that your friends will love. So hopefully we could do this justice for you, Josh. I think we're going to have fun attempting and trying it. So I think the first thing we discussed when we saw the title of what his topic was, we wanted to go over some ground rules, some criteria, and I quickly reached out to him, and he answered these 3 questions for us. So, thank you, Josh, because it makes our life a whole lot easier. So the first question I asked him was, how long do we have to prep for this? 30 minutes, an hour to 2 hours, and he replied anywhere between 30 minutes and an hour. So we're greedy, we're going to take the hour, right? So then the next question I asked him was, is it a pre-existing campaign or a one-shot with established characters or a one-shot with pre-gens? He said a one-shot with pre-gens, which helps us out tremendously as well. And I asked him, is it will we have a session 0 with an agreement of genre style and published or original setting, or the group has no idea what we planning? And he said no session 0 with no idea what we're planning, which is pretty cool.
Right, because that's perfect. And since we're talking about pre-gens, I have a ton of superhero pre-gens. I love superheroes, so we're gonna prep a superhero game.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. Like, if you're the GM who's being, someone's coming to your home soon, like, hey, I got my buddies coming over, we want to play Cypher System, but, surprise us with something. The easiest thing for you to do to pick a genre is to say, hey, what do I have fun pre-gens for? And in this case, Dean has some fun super ones.
And that works out perfect, because the first question I was going to ask is what genre we're running. But since Dean has a ton of superhero pre-gens, supers it is. Makes our life a whole lot easier. And Josh just called us and he said, hey, I got 4 of my friends coming over, and we heading over to your house in about an hour, and we really want you to introduce my friends to Cypher System. Could you, whip something up original? Sure, no problem. I got a ton of ideas. Wink, wink. So now I'm stuck in this awkward position. What are the first things that you do when you're in this situation? You have about an hour to prep with absolutely nothing written down, but you want to give somebody a group a 4-hour session.
So, essentially, you gotta think about what goes into your game and how to prep it quickly. So we already got the genre decided, boom, because we had the pre-gens. That's one thing to not think about anymore. But you gotta think about what makes the game the game. So you gotta think about a couple of key points, such as the narration, finding a story plot, the conflict, the creatures or NPCs involved, the guts of the game, ciphers, artifacts, GM intrusions, designing some scenes, an intro and outro. You definitely want to have a good starting point, a good ending point. And another thing to really consider is the player's input during the game. That can definitely help you flesh out the middle bits.
Yep. And also, with such little prep time, you just got to prep the important things. And more than any other moment in GMing, these are the type of games that you definitely have to not only encourage but allow your players to take control of the narrative more frequently than you would normally do in a written adventure or something that you had a long time to prep.
And the other thing I would add to that too is just remember, as a GM, you could kind of cheat and use those aspects as kind of a session zero without it really being a session zero. Even though Josh said we don't get one, and that's kind of the way you get around it, because you get the players to give you some input. Like, if you just hand them a pre-gen, let them look at it, see the power set, or you tell them, well, tell me what this character's origin is, or something like that.
Yep.
Those are good little points to build on.
And just to piggyback off that, even though, again, Josh came with the criteria of no session zero, it is important to have that sort of mini session zero. Again, you can do it while you're handing out the pre-gens, while they're looking at it, taking a few moments or minutes to absorb what their character does or who they are. And while they're looking at the sheets, have a quick little discussion about what themes might prop up in the game, because it all harks back to that consent in gaming. You don't want to have anything in your game that might upset the people at the table, so it just takes a few minutes to say, hey, I have this game planned. And as let's say again in this situation we have Josh coming with his friends, we don't really know him. As a GM in that situation, you should sort of err on the side of safety and try to not make your game too extreme in any manner.
Well, and
it's just a
that's
quick
great
little
point.
tip. Yeah.
I mean, that's a great point, because like even with supers, you can go, is it going to be gritty? Is it going to be full
All right,
color?
guys, I don't want to mean to be a dick, but Josh is on his way and we wasted 5 minutes on the clock. Let's move on to narration. Josh is on his way with his friends. So I broke it down into 5 different categories, 5 things that you don't necessarily have to prep, or 5 things you have to think about. So the first category is narration. Now that we know it's the supers, because Dean was awesome enough to have a ton of supers pre-gens available for the group to pick from, the first thing we need to decide immediately is what is our overarching plot line. So when you have very little time, in my opinion, I tend to try to go and reach for stuff that I already understand the plot line. So it could be a movie, it could be a comic book, it could be a TV show, and twist it and warp it to make it
Something original,
and something maybe nostalgic that they might know where you got it from, but it could be something entirely different. The direction you took it is entirely different than the original content.
And
you guys got any ideas for overarching plot line?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that when it comes to me, like the cliches never hurt. Like you don't have to go for a particular like exact like movie or show or whatever have you. Like Anthony said, like you can also just take a cliche like saving the princess from a dragon, or in this case, a supers game, saving the heroine reporter from, or saving the city. Yeah. You can go with any of these cliches as long as you pepper in your own little unique thing during the game. It's okay.
All right, so that's what I'm gonna write down. Okay, I got my our overarching plot line is saving the city. So now we immediately know that this is a citywide event. All right. The next question I'm always ask myself with narration, especially with very little plot time, is how and where are my PCs starting the game? This is very important, and I'll explain why. It's very important because it helps you design your opening scene, right? Since we have very little time, there's very few scenes that we're going to fully flesh out and design. And one that we absolutely have to fully flesh out is the opening scene. So now we have to decide whether or not our players know each other from the beginning, or is our opening scene their introduction to one another.
It's going to be introduction to each other. It's a superhero game. So I'm thinking, it's to save the city. I mean, I got kind of an idea already about what they're saving the city from. So I could see
that goes in the conflict section. We just
right. No, I understand that.
Step, yeah.
But I'm just saying. So I'm seeing them like in downtown opening scene, and this event happens, and they all have to like superhero up.
All right. So now we're using the same Cypher structure. Our sentence is going to expand now. So it's saving the city. Everyone's together.
Yep.
We all okay? The last question I'm gonna ask in narration, which is is a question that you should always ask yourself, regardless of how much prep time is. But what type of mood and atmosphere are we trying to achieve in this session? Do we want it to be, serious and dark? Do we want it to be, comedic? Do we want it to be action packed? Do we want it to be, sad? There's so many different avenues we could go.
Cinematic action.
All right. So now we have a so for under narration, we're gonna have saving the city, everyone's together, cinematic action.
Yeah.
So think Fast and Furious, that over the top.
So that I should have had a pen on me, but that's our first sentence.
And that makes it super easy to just jumpstart your session. Like right there, boom, we already have the start of the session.
Yes.
And then you just go from there.
All right. So now we know what our narration's gonna be, right? We sort of have an idea of how our opening scene is gonna look. Thank you so much, Dean. We sort of have an idea of how our opening scene is gonna look like. Now let's deal with what the main focal point of our session is. What's the conflict? So the first question I'm gonna ask myself with very little prep time is, who is the main antagonist? Now, a main antagonist could be a person, could be a group, could be a situation, could be a circumstance. Saving the city with supers could go a lot of different directions. The first thing I thought was saving the city, I thought of some sort of natural disaster.
Okay, and the first thing I thought of was alien invasion.
All right, so let's combine the two.
There's
an alien invasion that's causing some sort of natural occurrence to the city.
The city's built on a fault line, and the aliens are coming down, and is making the fault start earthquakes.
Okay. All right, so we don't even know about the aliens. We know about the earthquakes.
Right. It's crazy.
Yeah, there we go. And that could lead into towards the end of the game where they're trying to figure out what's causing these anomalous earthquakes.
So our intro scene is earthquake actually happening in the middle of a city. And I must just say off the top of my head, the middle of Times Square, or what a Times Square similar, like a big metropolis similar, where a whole bunch of tourists are, a whole bunch of innocent citizens, everyone's pre-established supers, they all know each other. Oh, let's even go one step further to make it a little more interesting. They all retired superheroes.
That could definitely be a fun little twist to take on it.
They
They all just happen to be in the area at the same time, responding to an emergency situation.
Better yet,
they're on a tour bus, like a retired superhero.
Think of it this way: they're all retired superheroes, but maybe one guy is completely new. So, maybe it's his idea.
That might be something for the players to decide.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. How about they've all retired supers that are accepting a key to the city for a service award for years of service,
and that gives them a reason to have been together in the first place.
Yes.
They were just on the bus on the way to there. Like you said, it could have been a tour bus. There was like a little event planned where they take the tour bus to the key ceremony, and in the middle of their transport to the getting the key, or maybe it happens when they get to the key ceremony. That's up to you to decide as the GM. That earthquake starts to happen.
Oh, I also like this scenario too because we could now we have the option to have it tier 2 or tier 3 if we wanted to go a little, since it's a alien invasion. We could give our supers a little more abilities.
That's true.
All right. So now we decided it's an alien invasion that's causing earthquakes, right? The next question I'm gonna ask is, what do you want the players to try to accomplish, and do they need ally PCs? What I mean by ally PCs is...
You mean NPCs?
Yeah, NPCs. What I meant by ally NPCs... It's so important because it's gonna allow you as the GM to move the story forward if the players get stuck or in having trouble giving you direction in the narrative. That way we have some, like a wild card. We have these 2 allied NPCs or 1 allied NPC that's going to actually help us move the story forward. So I think it's very important that we include, especially with little prep, it's very important that we include at least 1 or 2 of them in there.
Let's say that we'll have like 2 allied NPCs. Maybe we'll have the young hero, the guy that's just starting out, and he idolizes these guys since they're all retired. And let's have like a public servant, like a fire chief or first responder or something that kind of knows the city to help move things along.
All right, so write that down. Young hero, fire chief.
That definitely works.
And the last thing I'm asked myself, and I'm asking you guys in the conflict section, is how many action scenes do we want to aim for in this session? You notice I didn't say how many combats. I said how many action scenes, like scenes that are going to be, take a little while, eat up some time, and it's important to the narrative of the story.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to again, when you're having a quick game, like not much prep time, it's hard to plan out a set number of scenes or anything like that. But it's always important, like we said in the beginning, to have that strong intro and that strong outro planned. So you definitely want at least those 2 scenes not fully fleshed out or anything, but well developed.
I would agree on that, and we will also need a bridge.
Yeah, that's what I was going to lead up with.
I was actually going to say that I always try to prep, especially for something like this. I would always try to prep the intro, the outro, of course, and then, I think of it like a movie. They call it the main action sequence, or like Anthony said, a bridge. So I would say at least those 3.
So we're gonna aim for 3 scenes. So that's another thing we know. You don't have to write that down, but it's something that you should take a mental note that you're aiming for at least 3 scenes in this session. 3 action. We'll call them action scenes for the sake of this video.
And what's important to remember, though, when you're thinking about this number, though, is not to get it too locked into your mind. Like, hey, I have to do 3 scenes, or my game is ruined. You can do 4 or 5 depending on how the players take the narrative.
Yeah, we aiming for 3, but the players are gonna take the narrative as well, so they might add a 4th or 5th scene. But we only prepping for 3. We letting the players to give us the rest of the story, right? The last thing that I didn't write on our notes, but I think is important for the conflict section, is since we decided on a natural, some sort of citywide disaster and an alien that's causing it. Let's figure out what this alien is. And since Josh is coming, we got very little time. Let's pull one of our decks out. Let's utilize what Monica Games gave us. So, Dean, pull out a deck. I would say pull 2 creatures out.
All right. Let's see. I got...
And we'll have a main baddie and a secondary baddie.
All right. I got the Bamper-Raptor. It doesn't give you that good of a picture, but the Bamper-Raptor came up. And
what tier, what level is that?
That is a level 3 creature.
All right, so we definitely need something higher than that. So that's the Bamper-Raptors could be either something that they use as pets on their alien ship, but we need something higher than that. It doesn't have to be totally random. We don't have 5 seconds to prep.
How about a Cambion? The Cambion looks interesting.
All right.
And it's a level 5. It's a level 5 creature.
Is that super weather? We will have to add power shifts to that.
Yeah, probably, definitely. Yeah. And again, that's the beautiful aspect of the Cypher System, is we can take these cards as a base and then adjust as needed.
Well, so again, like I said, one of the modifications on the Campion, though, it actually has a disguise ability at level 7, which come in handy. Ideas already.
All right. All right. So the Cambion, and what was the first one called?
The Bambi Raptor.
So the baby raptors, the baby raptors are sort of like their pets, and I would say for the sake of supers, let's jack that up. Instead of 5, let's make it 6 and 4.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
And on top of that, like
baby raptors, not even make them their mounts. they can ride them.
Yeah, but if they have a ship, why do you need a mount for?
Well, I was thinking something different. Why not? Let's go a different route with instead of just like aliens in the spaceship. Why not aliens who come through dimensional rifts? That's what's causing the earthquakes.
Also, they directly not causing them. It's the rifts that are causing it. I love that idea.
Yes.
All right, so
Let me write that down.
so now it's dimensional rifts. Oh, and that gave me another idea. So then they're not necessarily. Let's say they're not necessarily evil, and that's the bridge story. They're escaping the big bad. This is the bridge. They're running from something. These are the natives.
That's actually a super good idea. And again, that gives us 2 points of conflict where they have to, and again, it's not all combat based. In this situation now, they have to maybe communicate with these alien beings that are fleeing, figure out what the problem is, maybe get some help into the second conflict, which is the major big bad.
So now we have our intro scene. Our superheroes are receiving the key to the city. Earthquakes happen, which leads into reports from the firemen that there's these dimensional rifts opening up throughout the city, and these weird aliens riding these dino raptors are appearing in every different part of the city, causing all sorts of mayhem and destruction. This allows the players now to decide which direction they want to go. And we'll give them multiple options, which will lead into our bridge scene.
And hey, guys, just had a great idea then. Since we're using our decks, right? And we need a big bad, let's use the NPC deck.
Okay, yep. So pull one out.
Yeah, we'll use that to make the big bad.
And again, for people at home, the NPC deck has it's basically randomized NPC that you get to choose from a deck of cards, but it's not really statted out like a creature. But again, due to the modality or modularity of Cypher System, we can just tack those stats on with no problem.
Yep.
So this is cool. We got Bellstrom. Okay. It says appearance. It looks ill. His demeanor is effusive. Personality clever. All intellect-based tasks are +2. All physical tasks are -1, but distinguishing features, sallow skin, and deep bags under his eyes. So you can make this like some kind of crazy wizard or something. So I'll put that right there.
All right. So then, okay, we got that now. Right? So that now we know what our conflict is. Now let's move to the important actual prep things. And we've already wasted about 20 minutes getting sort of a shell. We have a good idea what our intro scene is going to be. We have a good idea what our bridge scenes are going to be, and it's branching off into multiple directions, which would allow the players to control the narrative to save us some time. Now the gut scene is, what do we have to prepare? Do we need to do a quick cipher list? Do we need a quick encounter list? And I would say that encounter list is more like instead of encounter list like you normally would do in like a D&D type game, this is just an intrusion list. Like good ideas that you don't necessarily have time to implement into the game, but if you do have time, you could use as GM intrusions. That's a quick little tip for someone who has little prep time. Don't prep scenes, just prep little intrusion ideas. That works out excellent. And the last thing I would say is since especially this really applies is, do we need an artifact list? But since now we're dealing with dimensional rifts and an alien wizard, there's definitely an opportunity for us to sneak in some cool artifacts for the players. I would say we pull the decks out and just pull 10 to 15 random of everything. You don't have to read those out, Dean, but just count out 10 to 15 random artifacts and ciphers and just put them off to the side. We don't have time to be all like super prepped about it.
And the beautiful thing about the decks and whatnot, again, some of the decks are they're made for certain games like Numenera or The Strange or whatever have you. But again, you can just reflavor them to fit the needs of the super game that we're prepping at hand. And some people like to use random tables when they're doing a game on the fly. And again, there's nothing wrong with that if you're pretty quick about it. But if you find yourself breaking the flow of the narrative to break out the D100, to look at the 2 or whatever charts that you have to look at, figuring out what that cipher does, that ends up breaking a little bit of flow and adding to your runtime. And this portion right here, where we're just selecting the stuff beforehand randomly, still, again, we're not choosing anything, it's still that random nature, giving you that pre-selected pool cuts down tremendously on that narrative breaking flow.
How many artifacts did you want?
10. We're not
10 artifacts too? 10 and 10?
10 and 10. We're not necessarily going to give them 10, but we'll have, over the course of the game, we could look at the cards and see what fits.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know a lot of people love the randomness of the charts, but I have nothing against that. But I do think that it breaks immersion a lot of times when it was like, could you roll me a D20? I'll tell you what ciphers you got. Just give them a random cipher. You don't have to roll. Like, here, this is the cipher you got. And especially in stream games, that annoys me.
And I tell you too, I can say this: the deck is really cool because you know what? Just have them pull a card, or you just drag a card out, and you get and then like all the stats are there. You don't have to read it. You don't have to worry about it. It's just right there.
Exactly.
So, you can reflavor it real quick on the fly if it's something that wouldn't necessarily fit.
And the last thing we need to do for guts of the game, since Josh is on his way. I hope he bought pizza because we kind of hungry doing all this work, and some soda, except for Mountain Dew. I know that's Dean stuff, but I'm a cherry Coke guy. But
Mountain Dew.
Bring some Corona. But the last thing I think you need to prep is names and personalities of these NPCs. We already decided that we have a young superhero, so he needs a superhero name and a personality, and we decided that the fire chief is going to be on their side. So we need to get a name.
I got a name right here. Yeah,
we short on time. Just grab the NPC deck. Grab 2 names, and we have those names. Or you could go online, and there's a ton of name generators and personality generators that are absolutely free, and you can get them in seconds.
Right, and remember, I have a bunch of pre-gens, so they already have names too.
And Google is your best friend when it comes to generators of that sort of caliber. There's so many different kinds you can find, and they're all free. And
there's one that has like everything. It's on one page, and you can just go to like everything. You can go to different genres on one page. It's crazy.
All right, D, just so our audience knows where we at this stage, what sentences have you wrote down for us so far?
Basically, we have opening scene, saving the city. Heroes are all together for some cinematic action. It's a natural disaster, alien invasion. Retired superheroes are accepting the key to the city when everything goes to mayhem. There's a young hero and a fire chief out there that's going to help them. I wrote it down, but we said we were going to worry about it. 3 scenes to prep.
All right, so I'll break it down how I would normally do it. Right now, that's about 2 sentences of what I would normally have. I would have opening scene, parties accepting key to the city, earthquake happens. That's it, right? My next sentence would be, introduce police chief Wiggum. Fire chief Wiggum and Static Bo, young superhero that follows team.
There we go.
Wiggum.
And and yeah, that again. Go
ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that you just follow forth. Again, you can if you're trying to have paper notes or digital notes or whatever have you, you can leave a few empty spots for potential improv scenes that might happen, and you can still put your sentence for what you want towards the end to happen.
Yeah, that's what I mean by I'll have a sentence with a wide gap in between the next sentence because the players and yourself are going to fill in those gaps.
Yes.
Right. So then the next sentence I would put would be the bridge scene, which would be interdimensional rift, alien, Cambion riding raptors, destroying city, ? because
It's up
we
to the
don't
players,
know.
yeah.
Yeah, it's up to the players to see what, and then I'll leave a gap so they'll tell us what the direction we're going to. And that leads into what the next stage of our planning would be, or my mindset in planning is most important scenes. This is the stuff that, okay, now we have, I don't know how much time we should have had a timer on, but I'm assuming that we haven't wasted more than 20, 25 minutes discussing this.
Yeah, about
so
that.
I'm assuming that here's where we waste the bulk, the rest of our time in is fleshing out these 3 scenes that remember we said we wanted to at least have 3 action scenes. Here's where we'll start that. So how is the game going to start? Intro scene. We already know how we intro scening in. We have a good idea, maybe huge crowd in front of City Hall or some major landmark building. When an earthquake happens, we could go multiple directions. Either a building is falling, a crack in between, putting innocent bystanders at risk, which will force our players to act.
Right.
Exactly.
That's what I was thinking of. The ground cracks and people start falling into this, this crack in the earth, and to pay attention to the moment, lava starts bubbling up, and it's coming, so they're on a timer to try to get people out before the lava gets to them.
Yeah, that's another side note when we said intrusion, building falling, crack, lava. So now you have these ideas that you could use one, all, or none, but at least you have pre-thought some quick ideas that you could jot down on the side, which is great. Lava, I'm picturing since it's a metropolis city, they have fire hydrants. A fire hydrant bursts up and lava starts flowing out instead of water.
Yeah, well, what I was thinking, that works. I mean, we can do it that way. You could do. I was thinking that they have like a little bit of time, like when the fire hydrant break, instead of water, is steam.
Yep. You see, that's why we all GMs and we all think improv differently. Yep.
And just to add to this just a little bit, just to give a different sort of perspective, you can plan these things not very specifically, but you could have again, the hydrant burst, there's lava, whatever have you. On my side, personally, I think it would be more like that general question that Anthony asked. Mayhem starts to ensue due to earthquake, ? Then when we're actually sitting down at the table, I'll just, in that moment, think of what I want that mayhem to specifically be. I won't have anything written down like cracks or building falling. Just in the moment, I would come up with it. Yeah, and again, that's just a certain perspective.
That's an awesome idea. You can also, if you have extra time, you could also have some narration, like describing, like, hey, I noticed that the bird stopped flying a couple of seconds before we started walking up to the counter, up these stairs to receive our award. It got deathly quiet. Just write little notes down for descriptors, descriptions for your intro scene that lead into whatever mayhem's going to be. Right? So now we know how the game's going to start. What should our midway point of the session be is the next question I'm going to ask. And me personally, I think the direction the story's going in, I think our midway point of the session would be where the players decide these aliens on raptors, are they the good guys or the bad guys?
Yeah.
Are they going to defeat them or help them?
Well, that was kind of what I was going to say, was what the craziness is. If we're going to open it the intro, it would be kind of nice to kind of even like, that would be the bridge to give people an idea of what's actually happening. The aliens, they wouldn't even know about the aliens.
That's the bridge.
That's what I'm saying. They wouldn't even know about the aliens until that scene. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so basically, they're dealing with they're thinking they're dealing with a natural disaster, earthquake situation, and then the bridge scene introduces the aliens.
Yeah, which would be about an hour and a half, 2 hours into the game.
Yes,
right.
Most definitely.
Yeah. But within that hour and a half, 2 hours, you have to put in some descriptors to let them know that there's dimensional rifts opening up. Because if not, it's gonna you're gonna leave the players into one direction, a linear story, instead of giving them options. Like, do we deal with this disaster or do we deal with these dimensional rifts opening up? Like, I'm a big fan of having multiple options and let the players choose which direction they want to take the story in. Because I'm lazy and I don't want to prep for everything. I just give them the option and let them. But either way, it's going to end up to the bridge. You know what I mean? So it's like we both get into the same story. I would just like to have at least a little hint early on the way.
Oh,
to the
no.
bridge
I
of the
wasn't
story.
saying that there weren't going to be any hints, but I'm saying that's where the big reveal comes. Because
Yes.
if we did it like, my thought process would be doing it like there's reports coming in, but everything's broken up. It doesn't make any sense. You know, there's large animals. There's savages running up and down. So people think you give the players the idea that there are people looting and maybe the zoo is the stuff like that.
Yep, that works perfectly. We on the same page.
Exactly.
So that is our midway point bridge. So that's the second scene that we don't have to fully flesh out, but it's heroes meet alien on raptors ?
Exactly,
right?
and that's how I would phrase it in my notes.
Yeah.
and that's where it gets interesting, because this is where the player input becomes heavy. Now they have to assess the situation and decide whether they're going to try to defeat these. Again, it depends on how they perceive the situation. Do they perceive the aliens that are on these raptors as purposely doing it? Are they examining them as fleeing? Like, it depends on how the whole narration goes, but then it's up to the players to decide, do they want to engage them in the fact that they want to stop them from doing this, or try to engage them and figure out why they're doing this, and maybe again lead to that second big bad. And again, the player input is super crucial here for you to play off of.
It is also crucial. I think you made a huge point. You said something, the narration. So you're going to have to kind of, as the GM, nail down how you're going to introduce this. Don't try not to color it one way or the other. You got to kind of see if you can find some neutral language,
Yeah, but that's why I said you jot down little one-word phrases.
Right, right. That's what I'm saying. So, you would say these creatures on the back of these raptors, they look wild-eyed. And
I actually liked what you said. Savages. I would use weird phrases originally.
Yeah, savages, weird, wild-eyed, crazed, frantic. Yeah, all of those type things. So to give to set the stage that they're not necessarily hostile in the sense of they're coming through and just crushing crushing cars and snatching people up.
Again, that ambiguity, yes, is important when describing their actions, because if you make them seem unified, the players are immediately going to be railroaded into thinking, hey, we need to fight them, instead of understand what they're doing. So,
but you still have to leave the door open
for them to do them. Yes, exactly. So
because every good superhero issue always has, they fight the good guys at first, beat them up, and then realize.
Yeah.
Hey,
So the situation at hand will be very threatening. So the first response is to try to stop them physically, and then again with the ambiguous phrasing that I was speaking of, the weird freaking like frantic, wild-eyed. You gotta use things like unorganized, like they're just, it seems random. The destruction, all that stuff will make the players think that, hey, maybe it's not them. Maybe it's something pushing them to do this or something.
So not only
guys, that Josh is on his way.
Okay,
Josh is on his way. We can't waste 30 minutes.
So perfect, and that's perfect what Al is saying. And what we should do is also have one key thing in there that will be the trigger to reveal something.
So pick something and let's move on. We don't.
Okay, so what happens is one of the creatures on the back of the thing. You see that he's or she's holding a baby and protecting a baby.
All right, so that's another scene then. Warrior on raptor with baby. End the sentence. Move on. We don't have all day to flesh out a written adventure.
Yes.
The last thing I'm gonna go into is, where do we want this game to end? Now we have our bridge. We have our opening scene. We have 4 of our 5 sentences. Where does this game end?
So
does it?
the beauty of the storytelling nature and just narration in general is that no matter what the players choose, whether they choose to fight the Raptors and try to defeat the onslaught wave that's happening, or whether to understand and help them with the last threat that we talked about, the real big bad, no matter whether they decide, we can still introduce that big bad. Whether they defeat the horde of onslaught, then the big bad's like, oh, hey, you defeated my army. Or whether they try to understand why they're fleeing and then approach the big bad. That, those scenes leading up to the end scene will be decided by player input, but the end scene will still be them confronting that big bad.
Yeah, we can't control where the end scene is going to take place because this is sort of improv 1 hour session. But what we can control is what is the big bad. So is he a wizard? And why? Why is he opening up these rifts in the first place? So those are the questions we should answer.
So I would say,
is he?
I would say he's a wizard, and basically what he's doing is he's collecting these gems, from different worlds, because they hold the key to his power. And
that sounds too Avengers Endgame.
It could also be something like he's just been opening rifts through magic, powerful magic on their home dimension or whatever have you, and he's doing it more of a display of power. Like, hey, I'm the strongest wizard in the land. I don't know what
it's a show of dominance.
Yes. And maybe again the magic has some negative side effects to the civilians of that dimension, where maybe he has to harvest their life energy to provide for his magic. And
it's a show. How about if it's a show of dominance for his someone he wants to impress, like a wife or
there we go. Anyone, a suitor, another evil kingdom in their dimension.
Yeah, he wants to give the earth or this city to someone, to everyone in it as slaves to someone.
Yeah, but we still have to keep in mind that we have to have a reason for these creatures to be fleeing into our dimension from their dimension. Because they're fleeing, right? They're fleeing from
they're running
whatever chaos he's causing.
Yeah. So
so we can just say he's an extremely tyrannical ruler of that area, and then when he started opening rifts to try to give Earth to whatever his other kingdom is, he was trying to steal New York or whatever the metropolis is, but because he's so tyrannical, the instant these rifts started opening, the civilians took this as an opportunity to flee.
Or maybe yet...
Or to try to seek help.
We use a Dark Sun idea that every time he uses magic, he kills the land. So they have nowhere to harvest food. The land is just dead. So he's destroying his world. So he's opening up these rifts so he can use his magic. And he needs life, like what you said. Something like that.
Or better, or that's, okay, that works for me. Yeah, I have nothing.
Like he eats you can add on to that idea if you want, Dean.
Well, I was just thinking, you know what? It wouldn't make sense for him to totally destroy the land, but what if, like Al was saying, that the ones that are running, we think they're warriors. Well, they are. They might be a warlike race, but they're running because, like Al was saying, he's literally sucking their life energy, so they're trying to escape away from him because they know whenever he does this, a bunch of them die.
So like a Dark Crystal type effect. Yeah, we can go with that. Yeah.
Right. So, and then here's the other cool part. Like when we look through the rifts, you don't see just his world. You see all different worlds that he's done this to before. So it's like a mix.
All right. So the last question I'm gonna ask. So now that we have a basic idea. So these are actually goodly folk running, so their essence wouldn't be devoured by this wizard.
Yes.
Right.
All right. So is the final conflict going to be on the other side of the portal?
That's up to the players.
That's up to the players. Whether because players might be reluctant to step into the portals. That's where you have the guy step out. Other players might want to just have that charge and just run right in. That's what you have it happen on the other side. In this situation, as prepping for this, you might want to have a little description plan for that extra dimensional area because they may go through the portal.
Yeah. And I will also
how
we
about
would
this?
have to we definitely have to stat up the wizard.
Yes.
And
Well, I even
guys,
added,
guys, just so you know, we have 12 minutes. I want to fit it within the realm of the like.
Okay.
I actually want to accomplish what he has. We have 1 hour. We have 12 minutes. So we have to stat up the bad guy first before we even move into. So
again, Cypher's super easy.
Yeah.
You can just say what you want him to do, assign difficulty levels to it.
well, this
So-
is a superheroes game, and we said we were probably going to pump up the heroes maybe to tier 2, since
Yeah.
they're kind of retired. Tier 2, tier 3. I would say just make them tier 2. Let's make the wizard a 12th level. He's a 12th level big bad. You know, that because these guys have power shifts and everything else. 12th level.
And since we have 12 minutes, we could actually open up the Cypher core book and pick out like 6 or 7 main abilities and give him those abilities.
Yep. Or again, of my mindset is I would just run with the description we gave us. We just gave him of sucking life force, of being tyrannical, and build off that. And I personally, I would just build his abilities on the fly, on the spot. Whether he have a life drain that can suck the energy from the players, maybe he can, again, you can take the aspect, even though we're not running with the idea, maybe he can corrupt the land with his touch. All this sort of play, like you can, again, it's if you're having a difficult time coming up with that stuff on the fly as an improv GM, there's no problem with, again, going through the book, and because the Cypher core book is splendid for this. It lists the abilities and like power level section, so you can go ahead and just pick a couple that you like,
Pick and choose.
like maybe you just like the name of it, and then you can just reflavor it to fit our villain.
And I'm kind of in the same. I'm kind of in the same ballpark with Al. Just because I was thinking about classic, wizard abilities. Fireballs, lightning bolts. Like he said, corrupting the land. Life skills, because we said he's a life drinker.
So we also have to make sure that we mention when they cross over that these characters, even the aliens on Raptors, have a fantasy edge to them or fantasy description to them. If we're going with the classic evil wizard villain, so this dimension is a little more medieval fantasy-ish.
It could be, but you can also, again,
doesn't have to be.
Yeah, if you wanted to keep
think
it
of
that.
Cypher System. Think of Numenera.
Mm.
Numenera definitely doesn't have a typical fantasy feel to it, but yet and still nanos and glaives and everything else do have a. So I would just say I would dump the weird. I would go awesomely weird with it.
And
Okay.
well, I was just gonna say that it's up to you as the GM how you want to flavor, right? You can, as Anthony said, make it medieval, like again, because in his mind, a wizard is like their land is probably a medieval place, or it could be like Dean said, where it's more futuristic. The powers come from nanites or whatever. Maybe the trees are mechanical when you go, whatever have you. Like make it weird. Or again, it's up to you. It could be whatever you want it to be, as long as those key elements are still.
What I meant by medieval wasn't necessarily.
I know
like
back in time
D&D.
or anything. Yeah.
I meant like sword, shield.
But again,
riding mounted
you don't
animals.
necessarily have to go that direction.
Yeah.
It could just be. It could be again a futuristic alien race where again these nanites are what are producing these effects or whatever have you. You don't have to. Again, it could be however you want to flavor. Again, that's the beauty of Cypher System.
All right, so the doorbell's ringing, and we have what's our last sentence?
Wizard stealing life energy and attempting to raise the city.
Okay. So then now we have our last sentence. Josh is coming in with his friends. They say everybody's sitting at the table while you tell them, they eating their snacks, grabbing their drinks. Everybody's, that 10 or 15 minutes you have right before a session starts. These are some questions you should be asking yourself, especially when you just improv the whole crap out of this game and you have 5 sentences. What you should be asking yourself is, how do I encourage role play and get player involvement? Because we definitely gonna need some player involvement because we only have 5 sentences. So how do I distribute intrusions? Which is another question, is when do I place the intrusions? How do I want to start the main scene with a group intrusion when everything happens? Or do I want to save that group intrusion moment for when the wizard shows up? You don't have to write anything down. This is just things that you should be thinking
And
you
here's
know,
something else.
smile and nod at them as you, you know, as they think you have everything under control, but your mind is racing a mile a minute. Get Dean?
I was going to say the another thing to consider too is how long are you trying to run this session? How much time do you have? Do you have
We said
4 hours?
3 to 4 hours.
It's a 3 to 4 hour session.
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
So all of those things, it's going to boil down to your pacing. You got 3 to 4 hours. You want to try to encapsulate all of this. So you have a couple of things you can think about the ending, you know, and there's a couple of ways to do it, you know, like, you know, if you have to, you know, depending on how your time goes, because it could be that the ending is just you revealing the big bad and, you know, the the first vestiges of the battle begin and boom, that's where it ends like a cliffhanger. So guys, come back next week and let's pick it up, you know, or you know, it could be that you guys defeat him. What do you want to happen? Or are you going to let it all unfold organically? And that's a question to ask yourself.
And the last thing is not so much a question you should ask yourself, but it's personal advice that I find works for me, especially when you're running an improv game. It's read the table, read the table, read the table. When you only have 4 or 5 sentences of your structure, that means that you depending on the players to do the majority of the narration and to lead the story to go in any direction they choose. So if you see them going into a dead end, that's when you know to react with GM intrusions or to take control of the narrative for a little bit till they get their bearings together and see what the players like. If you introduce an NPC and you notice that no one's paying attention to this fireman, nobody wants to, let them go. You know, find someone else that'll capture the players' hearts and intention. There's no need. You don't have time to beat a dead story plot. You have to be able to read what everybody's thinking, what they're saying amongst themselves, whether they're smiling, they're laughing, if they're having a good time, follow those plot hooks that they seem to be enjoying, right? And then move the story in that direction. One of the beauties, in my opinion, of having very little prep is that you don't get butthurt when they don't take your hooks because you have very little hooks to begin with.
Well, but, I mean, I was just going to say, you know, kind of capitalizing or piggybacking on what you were saying, Anthony, you know, even when I plan out a campaign now, I don't build a campaign with every detail. I don't want every detail anymore. I those days are done, you know, and it's so liberating to be able to say, hey, you know what? They didn't take this hook. Well, guess what? I can save it for something else. You know, so it's kind of cool, you know, and like I said, it's all about the improvisation. It's all about truly like being inspired by your players. Your players will give you so much cool stuff to do. And another thing you might want to do is introduce, when you do decide to introduce an intrusion or something like that, kind of throw it back into the player's lap. Ask them what the intrusion is. That's another quick way to get them involved in the world itself. So,
and just real quick before we move on to the closing out our video, because this is basically what you're thinking out at the table when you're sitting down about to run the game, and just a couple things on what the questions Anthony asked are like how to encourage role play and player involvement. Just a quick tip on that. Just something I like to do at the table is when you're trying to like describe a scene or something or like what's going on and the players ask you like, hey, I look around, well, what do I see? Ask them, what do you see? Because you already painted the general picture. You know in this situation that it's a city that's falling apart due to earthquakes. Let the players flesh out the minor details. Look around. Hey, maybe there's a pet store that has animals fleeing. That's up to the player to decide. All that stuff is super awesome and, again, helps you fill out those empty spots in your story and lets the players have fun filling in the universe that they're playing in.
Oh, another thing, too, that excellent point. I love using that technique, and that technique works so well when you improv. Another thing, too, is when you describe a scene, just embellish it, throw some random stuff that wouldn't normally be there, like in the opening scene when we're saying, hey, we accepted the key to the city. You notice that there's a whole group of nuns off to the side feeding pigeons. Just say random stuff and see what sticks. Because I'm pretty sure somebody going to be like, wait, there's a group of nuns? And then put those nuns in jeopardy 5 minutes from now.
Right.
Yeah.
That random stuff becomes handy.
Yeah.
And wreal quick, but wait a minute. Lost my train of thought.
No biggie.
I was going to say, Josh, did we answer this? And let's just go over our 5 sentences one last time, right? You have opening scene, retired superheroes accepting key to the city.
Right.
Earthquake happens, right?
Yep.
Introduce Fire Chief Wiggum and Static Shock superhero.
Static
Bolt superhero.
We're not trying to get sued.
Yeah, yeah. Static Bolt superhero. What was the third sentence? The bridge.
Aliens
scene.
coming. Alien. That's the bridge scene. The aliens coming through dimensional rifts.
Then the fourth scene was alien with baby.
Right.
And the fifth scene is final bad. What was the one you wrote about?
The final. The true big bad revealed. Basically, he's trying to steal the life energy, or steal the city, and stealing life energy.
And we have level 12.
Level 12 wizard.
Wizard, and we have the cards for the other
two.
Guys.
Real quick, and well, you know what? Let's do this.
Josh is waiting. They've been here.
I know.
Already.
No. I know Josh is waiting. So it's all set. We've got the artifacts. We've got the ciphers. We've got the Bambi Raptors and the Cambion, and we've got the NPC card. So we're all set there. We've got an intrusion deck over there, but we don't necessarily need it. And the adventure's ready to go.
So, Josh, did we do good? Before the game starts, I want to grab a Corona and a slice of pizza.
And just one real quick thing about reading the table before we move on. It's just something I didn't touch on. Let's say again, before everything start running, you decided you want to do like a serious, gritty, story or whatever have you. And like Anthony was saying, those marks are missing, right? And there's nothing wrong with abandoning your choice and going in another direction, like maybe a light comedy or maybe make it more action-packed or whatever have you. Reading the table is so important in that aspect, because if you're missing the mark in the beginning, or if you see that it's not clicking, just switch it up. And switching how you're approaching the story, whether it's going from an action-y to like a comedy or whatever have you, you gotta have that flexibility when it comes to that improv storytelling, because if it's missing the mark in the beginning, there's a very strong chance that they're not gonna, it's not gonna change. Their opinion's not gonna change going forward.
Right.
And at the end of the day, it's the enjoyment of the table, yourself included.
And as a boon or whatever you want to call it, guys, what I'm gonna do, we're gonna go over stuff. I'm gonna write this all up as a text document, and we'll throw it up on Cypher Unlimited, and you guys will be able to take it if you need a quick adventure. I'm going to throw it down with a bunch of adventure seeds, a little bit of text, to flesh out some of the scenes. I'm going to put the 10 artifacts in. I'm going to put the 10 ciphers in, and it'll be something that, Cypher Unlimited can have for their use.
And if somebody wants to play that, we'll be more than happy to run it as well and stream it on the CU if you want to. We love playing with people in our community, and we love sharing Cypher Unlimited love with you guys are a community, but more so you're our family.
So Josh, get a couple of friends together, man, and we'll play this craziness. I'm ready to run it now.
And let us know if we did okay. And speaking of Cypher Unlimited, if you like what we do, you enjoy our videos, you enjoy our content, or if you don't, you just want to watch our videos to tell us how freaking ugly we look, that's cool too. But please help us out. We really need your help and support any way you can. You can the easiest way and the best way to support us is just watch our videos, like, share, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so that way you're aware every time we produce new videos. So and you'll be aware, and let your friends know about us, right? But if you want to support us monetarily, we'll love to accept that as well. We have a Ko-fi site set up, so you can give us, you know, a little donation if you choose to do that, or just buy some cool Cypher Unlimited gear, you know, and sport it. You'll be the coolest person on the block with that. And we'll have the link to our Cypher Unlimited store as well. And like I said, you don't have to support us to enjoy the content monetarily. That's not what we're asking. You know, you don't have to do any of that. Just watch the videos, join the Discord server, and chat with us about Cypher System and Monty Cook games, because at the end of the day, that's all we really care about.
And you know what? And if you can, you know, hit us up. Hit one of us up. Hit all of us up. We'll run a game with you. We definitely want to do that. We enjoy it immensely. The more new people we bring in, the happier we are. This is a great game. This is a great system. And I can honestly say that, you know, being online for all these years, this is the best online community I have ever been in. Cypher Unlimited is the bee's knees.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to agree with you there. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for watching. Again, like Anthony said, be sure to like, share, subscribe. And yeah, be sure to look at the description down below for all those links we mentioned, for the coffee, for the Teespring, and all the other stuff we mentioned. And yeah, we'll actually have a Google Doc with the link to the little adventure we're typing up that we created here tonight for y'all to consume, and maybe we'll run it if people show interest. And yeah, thank you all for watching, and from us at the CU, we will see you later.